Okay, so I'm finishing up actually with all these different ones, and actually, God, this has been so many lectures. Having a class for alternative education in a teacher training school is absolutely essential. Why they don't have this, it'll go through inclusion, which is just some BS class that says we all got to accept everybody, but really, you know, they're talking about the special education classes, but there's no room for educated, smart people who want to maintain their humanity and their independence. You have an independent thought in an education class, they will destroy you, okay? And it's absolutely ridiculous how they act. So this is the last one with all the principles, okay? I'm going to do one about a Khan's Academy, right? And then I'm going to do one about Sugata Mitra and anarchist schools. And then I'm going to do one about vocational. Actually, I'm doing this whole video is going to cover all these. St. John's College, and then briefly mention self-education. I'm like Abraham Lincoln, who is self-educated in the sense that I don't want to be a slave and I don't want to be a master, okay? So in terms of equality, what does equality look like? The Kristen Harris, right, these absolute wicked, just low-life, you know, just garbage, right, just absolute trash. She has no talents or skills whatsoever. She thinks she does a PowerPoint that she's something special. She eavesdrops. She basically says, and don't come to me and talk to me because I just don't care about your life, right? So, right, no excuses. Do as I say, no excuses. So she's a nice drill sergeant dictator. She's proud of being the, you know, Richard Hudson. And he goes, oh, she knows who she is. Yeah. Yes, he's an unempathetic, psychopathic fucking piece of shit that psychos have no empathy for others. Psychos have no anxiety, and that's who she is. So she only gives a crap about oppression, and the oppressor and the oppressed are tied to each other, and they don't like each other. The book that changed my life, which I had mentioned, Bell Hooks, but she had also been impressed by Paulo Freire, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, and he really breaks it down. He breaks it down to how the oppressor is and how the oppressed is. And so the Franz Fanon also says something, and this is the example that I use all the time for the horizontal violence. In Africa, you had the white people. Probably happened in Haiti for a while until the black people finally got together and overthrew them. But there was a decolonization effort in Africa too, right, 60s and 70s. Still, France is manipulating currencies in Africa, so they're still stealing all that type of wealth. But the example that I used with Franz Fanon was sort of the white people were the ones that were brutal. They were the masses, right? They were the owners of the land, and they were making everybody into slaves, do this and do that. And even though the black folks would never stand up and take charge against them, they would oppose each other as soon as somebody give them the stink eye. If somebody slightly disrespected them, then they're ready to die. Well, what? You give me the look, what you going to do now? And so that's exactly what had happened with the Karen Dunnigan's class, okay? It wasn't like, you know, the oppression, it was social oppression, and so people have, you know, dignity and egos, and, you know, they love themselves. And so the Karen Dunnigan's class, she's yelling at me because Desiree McGowan had said, hey, give me a book, and so I lightly tossed the book to her, and it was only about like 3 feet away. She had missed it and fell on the floor. Then Karen Dunnigan wanted to make an example out of me. She was like, okay, everybody, we're supposed to respect people's personal property, blah, blah, blah. I didn't hurt the book. It didn't hurt anybody. Really, Karen Dunnigan was just like the authority figure that just wanted to make things worse, just to be an asshole. Hey, Karen Dunnigan, I'm the asshole for about a whole, you know, I tried to go to her. She's the one that convinced me to come to school about developing spirituality. I talked to her about how you didn't develop my spirituality. You actually crushed my spirit. And this is a grown-ass man they're doing this to, okay? So if they're doing this to grown-ass men, they're doing this to anybody and everybody. So, no, I don't believe you that that men have more of a say-so in life than women. I don't believe that at all. In fact, I've dated, you know, beautiful women and ugly women, and even ugly women think that I'm supposed to be like their servant, or I'm supposed to be beneath them, or I'm supposed to, like, you know, it's like they hate it and they love it or something. So, like, they hate like being pursued for their looks, but then they love it because then they can hold on to and capture the person the whole time. But they assume that I'm supposed to be their slave and that they can mock me and laugh at me, and that's somehow sort of cute. There's this woman, Angel. She kept on accusing me of being a police officer, and so I'm on my porch, you know, and it's absolute. I have to be victimized, and I got to be oppressed, and I got to be bullied and harassed by some, you know, overweight, disgusting piece of crap. And she's sitting there saying, oh, I know you're a police officer. And, like, you know, if I was a police officer, really, that's all she made me think is I don't have power in society. I need to get power because if I was a police officer, I would have friends. I would have had money. I wouldn't have been in a situation where I was stuck next to a disgusting, overbearing piece of crap named Angel. Okay, so Angel's sitting there staring at me, and she's sitting there saying, you're a police officer, so I'm shouting to the hills, no, I'm not a police officer. They're the ones that did this to me. Why would I love police officers? And I'm trying to be as elegant, and I'm passionately saying it from my heart. And what can believe you? I have to, show evidence to you that I'm not a police officer? And she never stopped. She was always an asshole. Well, what about this? What about that? Eventually, I tried to make amends, and then I did the dip for one of them. And so she had, do the dip, like you dance, right, and move your butt up or something. But I had done that for one of the women in the house, and then she wanted me to do it, so she starts lying to me. So the point is, she's a crappy person. I should love myself, and I should understand myself enough to where that somebody's manipulating and be crapping to me. And it was horrible. It was absolutely the worst experience in my life to live next to that psychopath. I did not leave. I got robbed eventually. Okay, so I'm shouting that I'm not a police officer, and then she had a gangster, a gangbanger on the porch. He came over and talked to me, and he was like, I just wanted to see your soul. Within 5 minutes, he was able to see that I wasn't a police officer, that I was a nice guy, and on top of it all, he saw that I was such a nice dude that I could be robbed in a minute for easily. Let's just rob this guy. He's an easy lick. So here I'm being victimized by this stupid ass. No, woman, you did not prove anything to me. All you proved is that you're a complete psycho asshole, and you're breathing over down my back, and you're sitting there accusing me of this and that, and then I'm shouting that I'm not a police officer, and all I did was open the door to the rest of the community to come rob me. I should not have had that discussion with you. I should not have lived next to somebody like you. You're an absolute psychopath, and it was bullshit. And so I'm living next to this person, and then I'm trying to go to class around the white women. I give a call to the operator, and then she says her name is Operator. Well, I got mad about it, and I called her a name, right? And then they want to try to say, oh, you're wrong, you're wrong. No, this is bullshit. I'm being surrounded by women, and so, if anything, my Louisville experience was that traditionally I side with those who are marginalized and oppressed. So gay people, Native Americans, black folks, the women throughout the world are being this. But what Louisville had taught me was that you can't just give carte blanche to black folks or women, because they will go ahead and run roughshod over you. You have to have some type of backbone. You have to have some love for yourself, and you can't let just people push you around. I should have recognized that she was a psycho. I should not have moved there. I should not have been in that spot. I wish I had better sense of actually who I am and where I want to go into this world. So Pedagogy of the Oppressed. When I read this book, I've been in like a daze for about 20-something years, not understanding why people act the way that they act. And I'm a grown-ass man, but like, imagine a child being stuck in this situation, and what are they supposed to do? They want the oppressor to love them, and they try to do everything, right? They do all the orders, but the only thing, you don't get respect by being an obedient Uncle Tom to the oppressor. The oppressor feels like their coercive tactics works. Oh, I was mean to that person, and then he did what I told him to do, so therefore I'm the king, I'm the person. There's this blonde-haired woman, actually, that was like in my house talking to me like a total butthole. I should have just told her to get out or call the police on her immediately. No, get out. I'm not going to deal with you. You're not going to come to my house and talk to me like a butthole. Eventually, I wanted to go out with her to see if she was a nice person. Do you have a nice bone in your body whatsoever? And she's like, what's your game? You think I'm just going to give you sex whenever you want? No, that is not exactly it. My game is I'm a good person, and I wanted to see if you're a good person. Do you have a good person? What was her tactic? To be a shithead? To be a complete shithead to me the whole time? That was her tactic? So Pedagogy of the Oppressed. This is why I think we should have a relationship class. And yes, I think actually we should have a relationship class, because at the very end, the very last class that I had at Spalding University, I was talking about my relationship with Julie Chancellor, and I felt that she was being a boss. She was sitting there saying, do this and do that, and she was breathing down my neck, and it was uncomfortable. And Spalding University did not teach me the confidence to speak up, to stand up and speak up. All they wanted me to do was to sit down and shut up. So I was a good sit down, shut up student, but I needed the independence, and I needed the will and the strength and the confidence to be able to get in front of the class and be able to teach. That's what I give Spalding University $50,000 to do. So to make me a teacher, the very first two things that I felt like I needed was I needed confidence with public speaking, and I needed to work on my PowerPoints. That's what I'm doing now that I'm not, I'm working on online classes. So I'm still, I'm working on those things right now. So this is right now I'm working on teaching and being able to speak up. And I'm glad, because the more I articulate myself, the more things I have to say, and the more, facts that I come across. So I can wow you with, the amount of information that I know. So Pedagogy of the Oppressed has basically opened my eyes, because there's three groups of people. You got the oppressors, you got the oppressed, and then you got the people that want to be equal with each other. And that's it. There's the hierarchy ruins everything. The will to power destroys everything. And this actually also comes from William Glasser. So let's see, the pedagogy of the oppressed. Paulo Freire, he's an educational theorist, and he goes down the line and explains every bit of it. Okay, he explains every bit of what an equal relationship looks like. And I do have like this equality wheel here, or no, I had the equality wheel, but where I actually started to learn what equality looked like, and I only got the power and control wheel, but the Women's Crisis Center. So I went to the Women's Crisis Center, and I was sitting there saying, you know, how I've been beat up and victimized, and so they had said, well, here's a wheel that says this is what a bad relationship looks like. You know, if people are coercing and pushing you around, then that's a bad relationship. A good relationship is one that respects each other, they listen to each other, and they care about each other, right? There's no coercive tactics. They're not trying to use any type of controlling tactics. But that's all teacher education was to teach you how to have power and control. So they're teaching them how to be abusers. They're teaching them how to be abusers and how to be oppressors and manipulators. And I understand to some degree that if you don't want to just be ran over roughshod, but that's what they want to do to me. So they sit there and say, you got to be yelling at the kids, because if you don't, then they'll just run you over. Well, that's what you guys are doing to me. You're running me over, and so I got to tell you what to do. But when I tell you what to do, then all of a sudden everything, you know, that's totally wrong. So you have to get 100% compliance out of me, but if I try to get 100% compliance out of you, that's when it's clearly wrong. No, that's bullshit. You're a hypocrite. You don't have any standards. You don't abide by any principles. You have no morals or ethics, and that's it. Obedience and morality are the opposites. When you do what you're told, you don't, you know, you have no humanity. You have no morals. Pedagogy of the oppressed. To talk a little bit about the oppressors and the oppressed, with Paulo Freire, he basically says that they need each other. Okay, so you got the equalists. You got oppressors, oppressed, and you got the equalists, okay? The equality people, the people that want to, I respect you, you respect me, I don't want to control you, and I don't want to be controlled by you, so what do? Well, we could build culture, we could share stories, we can give each other good advice about life. If somebody's messing with each other, we can give them tactics on how you would do. What would you to stand up for yourself? So there are acceptable tactics, there's proportional tactics, and then there's like, you know, tactics that are just wrong, right? So if you have a conflict and you say, well, I got to go with violence, well, that's if the only way violence is ever to be used is in self-defense or defense of another. That's the only time violence can ever be used. Self-defense or defense of another. But that's not how society looks at it. They'll believe a white woman's lies over my truth any day of the week. So no, Malcolm X Debate Club, you're being run by white women. That is not how Malcolm X envisioned it, for the white women to take over. The white women were the ones that were saying, hey, this black man raped me, and then he gets lynched in a tree, when actually it was the white woman who was raping the black man, and then she lied about it because she didn't want daddy to know that she was actually with a black man. So no, the white women are not pure evil and moral, or pure pious and moral. They're very selfish and wicked. Okay, so you give them everything. They're human. Okay, so they're human. You can't say all white women are evil, but the women that said that the black man should be lynched and didn't tell the truth, that is not a moral person. She did not adhere to moral principles, and she did not say right is right and wrong is wrong. She's like, ooh, society is looking at me bad. I don't want to, society to look at me bad, so I'm just going to go ahead and lie, and then that's the way it's going to be. So Paulo Freire, he really breaks it down a lot with the oppressors and the oppressed. He says the oppressors and the oppressed need each other. So the oppressors feel like they need to control people because that's just how, you know, they understand the world. And William Glasser talks about the will to power. And I might not even talk about any of these things. I'm just talking about the Paulo Freire. So I'm talking about theorists, okay? So Paulo Freire and William Glasser, okay? So William Glasser, he talks about, I'm going to get into William Glasser in a minute, because William Glasser was, Paulo Freire was not taught to me. I told Karen Dunnigan about him, and then she was like, oh, I'm oppressed, but she didn't employ anything about Paulo Freire whatsoever. She didn't even care about Paulo Freire. But the oppressors and the oppressed, why do they do this? Why do they organize themselves like this? Why did the slaves stay obedient to the white masses? Why was Africa allowing the white people to do all these horrible crimes against them, right? Mutilate them, beat them up, put them in holes up to their neck, and then just let the birds gouge out their eyes. Why would black people allow that to happen? And then when they wouldn't stop or stand up to the oppressors, but they would attack each other in a heartbeat. How, oh, you know, that person, white massa might have whipped the crap out of me, but you give me the stink eye. How dare you give me the stink eye? No, you ain't going to try to put me down like he just put me down. So basically, white people dehumanized, you know, the oppressors. The white people had dehumanized the black people, and the way that the black people in Africa, the Africans, the way they had determined to regain their humanity was to fight their fellow African man. So, you know, the white person had dehumanized them, told them that they weren't people, that they didn't matter, just like Julie Chancellor, just like Karen Dunnigan and Elizabeth Rogers, just like all the people at Spalding University and the JCPS Valley High School. So there's a they had did this. They were the oppressors. They have to dehumanize you, and then when you're dehumanized, and then somebody else wants to disrespect you, you have to say no, absolutely not. They have institutional power. So if you know I was to try to say, hey, respect me, they could ruin my life. But a person that has no power, then it's like, hey, who are you? You're not going to whip me and put me in the ground and let the crows peck out my eyes. So how dare you do that? And so really they're attacking other powerless slaves that have no say-so in society. So the slaves fight each other for the masses' delight, right, or just for their own soul. Pedagogy of the oppressed. The oppressors and the oppressed need each other. There's a fear of freedom, so they never ever just say, hey, let's be free. Let's just teach each other how things are supposed to work. The only way the oppressor can be liberated is through the love of the oppressed. The oppressed, they do the things for the oppressor because they love them, and they think, well, if I'm obedient and I do all this work for you, Master, then you'll love me. And Master will never love you or approve of you because they have to use you as a tool. They have to take away your humanity and use you as an object for their ends and their desires. And so to use you as a tool, as an object for their desires, they actually take away your humanity and everything that you are. In society, you got to make a living, so people are going to use you as a dentist or whatever. So they're going to use you as a tool, but they're not using you as a tool the entire time, your entire life, and you're also not going to have a relationship, you know, with your clients. They also give you money, so there's a tit-for-tat thing that's going on there. So the pedagogy of the oppressed, the oppressors and the oppressed feel like they need each other, and they, if they wanted freedom, then they would actually stand up and be free, right? The only way that they'll be free is when they start to respect each other and say, hey, let's cut out the hierarchy, let's cut out the oppression and the power and the domination over each other, and let's just be free. And if the oppressor is used to, so let's go back with the slaves, okay? So let's say white master sitting there whipping the black slave, and then eventually you get a Django, right? A Django gets up and he gets the whip and just starts whipping the crap out of the massa. So either A, the massa has to come to his senses and say, man, this is what I'm doing, then this is what they're doing to me. So the violence that is used to oppress is justified to use against the person. It's self-defense. So self-defense in terms of defending yourself or defending somebody else, that's the only time violence can be used. The oppressor uses the violence. That's how black people were kept down in the South for such a long time. That's how children are being kept down in the school system, right? Either do as I say, or I'm going to call this fat security guard to come and drag you out of class for ISAP, or you know, violence is how the people, that's how cops keep people down, right? That's the Boone County Party. Instead of just letting his presence disperse the crowd, he was going to say, hey, I'm Mr. Violent Man, and you do as I say, or there'll be violence. There was violence. He killed that 19-year-old girl, right, who was not drunk, who did not harm or hurt anybody, but he murdered her, straight up killed her. And because he got a badge, and society seems to think that police brutality is okay, they're basically going to defend, you know, him to the death, and that's absolutely ridiculous. So the oppressor and the oppressed, they need each other, and they have a fear of freedom, so they don't ever break out of that relationship. The oppressor is sort of enslaved to the oppressed because they feel like they always have to manipulate and control them. It's kind of like, oh man, why do I always got to tell you what to do? Why can't you just do it? You know, go and do the dishes. I told you to do the dishes, and I told you to go do the work, and you just don't ever do the work. And they feel like they're miserable because they have to sit there. And Louis C.K. was actually like this. It's like, he says he totally gets it when he's in the supermarket and the kid or somebody's being yelled at the kid or whatever. He feels sorry for the parent. Like, oh man, I feel you, parent. You know, all you want is the kid to do something. That's wrong. Louis C.K. is absolutely wrong when it comes to that. He is the oppressor, and he expects the kids to, you know, to love their oppression, and they're going to be manipulated for the rest of their lives because of that. So the oppressor has to tell the oppressed what to do to feel like they're human, and that's how they understand the world. And the oppressed feels like they have to do what the oppressor wants because the oppressed actually loves the oppressor, so therefore to win the love or the respect of the oppressor, just do as they said, and then they'll win. But unfortunately, they'll never gain the respect and the dignity as a human being because all it does is justify their coercive ways. So only the love of the oppressed is the only way both of them can be free. And that's sort of the historical responsibility for the oppressed, is to figure out how to liberate both themselves and the oppressor. So the black people could get the power and they could keep the white people out, or they can make the white people their slaves, but then they become the oppressors themselves, and then they're attached to the, you know, the oppressed themselves. So how do you liberate yourselves? How do you become free? Well, you liberate yourselves by saying, you do your thing, I do my thing, and then we just live that way. So either we have a relationship where we respect one another, or I get out of this relationship and I live my own life. So either run away or stand up. And the way they stand up to the oppressor, if he's whipping you, you go Django and you start whipping him. And then you say, see, this is what you're doing to me. Do you like it? How can you do this to me and not like it, and then expect me, to do it to me? So it's absolutely wrong, and it's clearly wrong. So anybody that believes in the golden rule, doing to others, you do them to you. I don't want to be a master, and I don't want to be a slave, and I think a lot of people are like this. But the oppressors and the oppressed, evidently, there's a relationship that has been created where one person tells the other person what to do, and the other person just goes along with it, and so that's Paulo Freire. That's a little bit about Paulo Freire, the oppressed and their oppressors. But also William Glasser. Okay, so William Glasser is an educational theorist that I've gone to two teacher schools, and both of them have mentioned this guy, but they don't employ any of his ideas. Basically, they say, hey, here's a learning pyramid, here's Maslow's hierarchy, and just learn the chart, and then let's not apply it. No, we need to start. The things we've learned should be applied, or therefore it don't even matter. You have a PowerPoint. You didn't teach me something because you showed me the chart. You teach me because of the way you behave and treat me. So William Glasser is a developer of reality therapy and choice theory. His ideas, which focus on personal choice, personal responsibility, and personal transformation. Equality. My God, just go down the list. If I did any of the things that they did to me, they would have already screwed me over a long time ago. So basically, shut up, sit down, do as you're told, and if you have an independent thought, you're going to get kicked out. But they talk to you like you're crap. I got molested. They stole $50,000 away from me. They did talk to me crap like all the time. They would yell at me for dumb things, like they told me to shut up when I wasn't even talking. They would say, hey, you got a newspaper. How dare you have a newspaper? What is your problem? So just stupid petty things that wasn't even issues, they make an issue about. Karen Dunnigan yells at me about tossing the book, and then Desiree McGowan, I said, well, she asked me to do it, and then Karen goes, well, if that's true, then you shouldn't do that either. And so I'm like, okay, good. And so I was kind of smiling that she was getting chastised and getting the same oppression that I was getting, and none of the class was looking right at me. And then Desiree McGowan, she goes, I'm going to kick your ass. I'm going to kick your ass. Which is heresy threatening, right? But I'm a man. I can't cry about that. Solange is allowed to hit Jay-Z. Women are allowed to do whatever they want to do to men, and I'm just supposed to accept it. No, that's absolutely not true at all. That's assault, and that's a crime. It's heresy threatening. I did not feel safe in that class. I was a minority. I was one of two men in that class, and I did not feel safe. And then when I give my last presentation, she's sitting there interrupting my presentation to where I can't say what it is that I actually want to say. So, shut up and sit down. The 10 minutes that I had to actually be able to teach, I was told to shut up and sit down. So what did I learn in school? I didn't learn anything. Not jack diddly shit. Except for I'm an obedient nobody. I'm a stupid slave dog, and I'm just supposed to go through the motions, and that's it. And my God, it's so freaking hot in here. I have no idea. It's not that hot outside, but I cannot get the air conditioner to pull the cold air from the kitchen into here. I'm going to finish with these theorists, and I'm going to get back to actually the four principles I was wanting to talk about. But these theorists matter. I think when you start talking about what theorists are right and what theorists are wrong, B.F. Skinner, he's a total psychopath. He says basically, use any means necessary to control people's behavior. You give them rewards, you give them punishments. That's how you live life, okay? That's just how life is. If you like their behavior, you encourage it. If you don't like their behavior, you punish them. And so he's all about manipulating people and then forcing them to sort of get into a routine, operate conditioning, so that way they are trained like monkeys to do what they're supposed to do. But nobody in Spalding University could even have actually had a well thought out conversation about the educational theorists. They hated me because I was an intelligent person and because I didn't like authority and wanted to display some humanity. So they just didn't understand that, because fascism is normalized and kissing the boss's butt is normalized, but actually equality, humanity, solidarity, morality, doing what is right, justice, these things are absolutely foreign to the American people's psyche. Okay, so that's why we have so many of the issues that we have. Vietnam, you saw people on the streets, and we got out of Vietnam. We didn't get out of Iraq. We haven't got out of the empire. We're going to stay in Iraq forever. We're going to stay in Afghanistan forever. This war on terrorism is never going to stop. 9/11 happened because we're killing people, but we keep killing people in Yemen. We're bombing the weddings. There's people that are being, killed right here in the United States. 5-year-olds are shooting 2-year-olds. You see lots of insanity. Kentucky's #1 for insanity. Kentucky is #1 for fastest growing prison rates, #1 for child deaths and child abuse cases, #1 for animal abuse, spousal abuse, elder abuse, violence all over the place. Kentuckians are just beating everybody up. And why are they doing that? Well, the oppressors are allowed to use any tactics that they want to, and they feel justified with it because other people seem to be justified with it. But then they'll get their kids taken away and just under the way. Why did that happen? Well, it's because you don't know how to be a person. You don't know how to be a human. William Glasser. I remember telling Desiree McGowan, I adored Desiree, and like in the beginning, me and her would talk in front of Karen Dunnigan. She hated it. She hated us when we were getting along. How dare you get along in my class? She's the boss. She was the authority figure. We was all supposed to just deflect everything that she had said. But then when we was all fighting, she loved it. Because she's a sick, sadistic freak. Okay? She only cares about her power. And these people that have no empathy for others, they have no other feelings, no principles, they don't adhere to any type of principles, they get off to hurting other people. They feel justified and they feel good when, since they have no soul and they have no feeling, to hurt somebody and to see that they get pain, they actually feel, that's when they feel life. Oh, I feel life now. I can't understand these people. I cannot, even an ant, my God, I got so many ants here. Every time I crush an ant, I'm like, I want to say a prayer to the earth or whatever, because it's like, I don't want to kill all these ants, but they just keep invading. I don't know where they come from. I mean, I could just set like a bowl with like a few pieces of chocolate, and then the next day it's just like thousands of ants are like swarming it. And then some days I'll just have that piece of chocolate there for a week, and then nothing happens. So it's like, where do you all come from? Anyways, William Glasser. Okay, so I'm talking about Paulo Freire. I'm talking about William Glasser, and maybe I actually could get into the other ones, but I want to. 26. Now I'm gonna get into the other the theories in the next video. I'm gonna finish William Glasser, and then I'm gonna call it quits, and I'm gonna jump into Khan's Academy and all the rest of them. So there was an introduction, but I totally went somewhere else because I'm talking about equality. This was the last class at Spalding University. They was sitting there saying how there were things, and I was talking to Jennifer Mangio because she's a good person to talk to. In general, she seems like a nice person, but she's got that vindictive wickedness in her. Now, I think actually Elizabeth Rogers was trying to protect poor little cute Jennifer Mangio, right, to do what they wanted to do, and there was no protecting them at all. When Julie Chancellor treated me like a fucking dickhead for 4 days, the only thing Jennifer Mangio wanted to make sure was, you're not going to hurt her, are you? She treated me like an asshole. I was scared of her. There wasn't a positive and safe environment the whole time when I was there. And she ruined my life. And then you all want to sit there and ask, you're not going to hurt her? No, I'm not going to hurt her. I don't want to be around these psychos. But why? Their concern was, you're not going to do anything to her. She fucked over my entire fucking life, but all they wanted to make sure was, you're not going to. The same thing with Spike. I remember Spike told me that I couldn't do freedom of the press. I couldn't do reports about Kevin Deaton. And Kevin Deaton had beat me up for, over 5,000 times. He smacked me around, putting these stupid trials on me, and he's going to try to do it again, and he's going to keep on doing it again and again and again. He's going to oppress me until I'm dead. The whole point of the oppressor is a sadistic love. They don't love you. It's a love of death, not of life. They have to take your freedom, take away who you are in your heart and your mind to make you a tool for their own bidding. And that destroys your humanity, it destroys what you are, and they don't love you. They have to destroy you in order to love you. They don't love you, they love death. The end result of the oppressor is to kill you. And so, he already tried to murder me once. He swung a golf club at my head, but Spike Wright, he had said, you're not going to, don't do news programs about him. Don't do news programs about him. You got to protect him. Barry Simpson did the exact same thing. I had a video of him being a total crazy asshole, and she goes, you're not going to turn that in, are you? Don't turn that in on him. When he recorded me, she didn't say nothing to him. There was another incident that I had thought of too, where the people was like, you're not going to do that. You're not going to use that against him, are you? You're not going to do that against him. Well, what? You're protecting the oppressor that was a total dickhead? How come you're not protecting me? I'm the one that was being victimized. You're not going to protect me because you think that oppression is okay. You think for oppression and domination, and these people have been oppressing and dominating their entire lives. They don't have any morals. They don't have any principles. They think any tactics that they use is acceptable, and they go overboard, and then eventually it catches up to them because who can actually respect somebody like that? Who can live somebody around? Either you will become a stupid slave to them, and then hopefully, maybe one day they might show some generosity to you. Who was it? There's somebody else today. I guess she kind of said, "You're not gonna hurt. You're not gonna hurt the person that's been hurting you, are you?" I don't know. But that was the concern of them. You're not going to hurt the person who is hurting you, are you? Why is that the concern? When are you all going to protect me? That's not important. I paid you $50,000 to give me an education. You should have heard me out, but they didn't even care about hearing me out. She didn't even go to the orientation. She didn't practice the co-teaching, but it doesn't matter. She's allowed to be a shitty fucking asshole. That's how things work. You get in line, boy, or else you get kicked out. And so I think they want to try to paint me up as somebody different or somebody like a bad boy. But no, I didn't cuss her out. I didn't. These are go down the line to all the people that did these things to me. Julie Chancellor, I didn't yell at her. I didn't humiliate her. I didn't treat her like an asshole. I didn't rape her. I didn't punch her. I didn't kill her. I didn't rob her. I didn't threaten to do any of these things. I did what she told me to do. And that was my mistake. Not having a soul. Saying, okay, here I am. Do what you want with me. That was the mistake. So she couldn't respect, and then I displayed a little bit of humanity, and then that was my crime. I wanted to have a conversation talking about the 1855 Know Nothing riots because I want to offer the kids something interesting. I want them to not be a bunch of racist pieces of crap. I wanted the white kids to know that they were immigrants too, so therefore they shouldn't hate immigrants. And it also kind of says the era of the 1800s. It was Germans and Irish that were coming over here. Well, when they came over here, they were being murdered by the white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. Why did the WASP hate them so much? So I actually wanted to give a real education, offer them a real thing, offer them information that had been interesting, make education fun and exciting, and they hated that so much that they were going to destroy me. And I could, if you can't have a conversation, how are you supposed to, so they don't understand equality. So that's sort of what the whole thing about this is. So at the very end of the conversation, I'm talking to Jennifer Mangio, and she's asking me about how things are going, and I'm just talking to her like a friend. And then Christian Harris, fucking evil, fucking big, fucking behemoth Nazi piece of shit, comes over, and it's just like a dog. I mean, there's these two dogs that I saw at my one house, and there's a nice dog and a mean dog. And the mean dog would always, if I went to, the nice dog was coming up, and I was going to feed it and pet it. But as soon as I would do that, the mean dog would come over and just, and as soon as it started barking at me, then the nice dog started barking at me. So was the mean dog protecting this nice dog? Absolutely not. The nice dog would have found a new friend. I would have been nice. I would have been feeding it and been nice to it, and so it would have found a new friend and would have had another ally in this world. Instead, the mean dog came over and says, rough, get out of here. You're the devil, how dare you? And then they fuck everything up. And that's exactly Kristen Harris. Kristen Harris is the mean dog. She comes over and she's like, she's looming just like Terry Shoon. They're like in your face and stuff. They don't realize they're in your space. You don't care about me, so this is not a conversation for you. This is not a professional thing that I'm talking about. This is me and her just discussing it. But she wrote on the report, he basically said he was going to do his own thing and he was going to care about freedom. He's going to care about freedom. And they've quoted freedom in the thing, and they said that he cared about freedom. How's that a wrong thing to care about freedom? If you think that I'm not allowed to have freedom, then you're the psycho who's destroying me. You're the psycho oppressor that Paulo Freire is talking about. You're the psycho oppressor that William Glasser is talking about. The will to power destroys all relationships. So that mean dog was not protecting the nice dog at all. That mean dog was keeping that was basically possessive. I own this nice dog. You can't be nice to it. How dare you come around me? And when it started barking at me, then the nice dog started barking at me. So the only way that I could have saved that nice dog would be to remove it, right? To either put the mean dog down, to separate it, and say, hey, I'm a decent, nice person, or just say, screw you guys. There's one of you guys are the oppressed, and one of you guys are the oppressors, and that's how you all want to deal with each other. Then fine, you guys will be stuck with each other for the rest of your lives. For the rest of your lives. Anybody that tries to be nice to the nice dog, nobody will ever be nice because you got Kristen Harris right there that's going to be yelling right in your face. So she had said, he cared about freedom. He's going to do things his own way. No, I was talking about equality, okay? So equality, it only can come down to two things. You smash hierarchy. One person doesn't rule over the other. So what does it look like? What does equality look like? Do I do things for you and you do things for me and it's a tit for tat and we're even? Or am I wildly free and you're wildly free, and then that just works out. We can get together, we can create culture, we can share food and do this and do that, but there is no hierarchy. I don't do things for you, you don't do things for me. We're just doing things together, and it works out. That's the one that I side with. That's the one I err with. But I think sometimes it is sort of a tit for tat type of deal too. Because I mean, in order to survive, I don't know. In order to survive, if I have a wife and she wants to cook for me and I want to provide the food, then that's sort of a tit for tat thing. She does a little bit for me, I do a little bit for her. But that doesn't have to be like that. It could just be, it could just be free. We just enjoy each other's company. Sometimes she wants to cook, sometimes I want to cook. She wants to get a job, I want to get a job. It just works out because we're just free people, and it just we respect each other and we love each other. So you're wildly free, I'm wildly free, and we make it work. And I think that's the best way to actually go about it. So that's what I was talking about, is what equality is. So hierarchy is one over the other. Equality is we're the same. Well, what does that mean, being the same? Sometimes we do what each other want. We're obedient to each other, or we're just wildly free. We do as we please. So I think it has to be one or the other. That's just logic, really. So when they heard my logic and they reinterpreted it for something else, saying I wanted to do my own thing. No, it was not that at all. You were talking about co-teaching tactics. You said that was not hierarchical. You said there are 6 co-teaching tactics. I should have just asked Kristen Harris and Jennifer Mangio, who's the slave and who's the boss? Which one is the slave of the other person? And that's just it. Who's the slave of the other person? And I think they would have opened their eyes to one of them isn't the slave. They work together in tandem with one another. There isn't one that's in charge. They're both in charge, and they work together. So they probably would have been, they would have had to choose either they do things for each other sometimes, or they're both wildly free. And that's it. But they didn't actually, she says she didn't want to have conversations. So, if you don't want to have conversations, what can I do with that? There's no air around you. I can't talk to you. William Glasser. Both of the schools had talked about William Glasser, and William Glasser is an absolute just genius. Okay, I'm not 100% on him, but I think he's like on point with 90% of what he says. So Glasser is the developer of the reality therapy and the choice theory. His ideas, which focus on personal choice, personal responsibility, and personal transformation, are considered controversial by mainstream psychiatrists who focus instead on classifying psychiatric syndromes, often prescribe psychotropic medications to treat mental disorders. So Glasser is notable for applying the theories to broader social issues such as education, management, marriage, to name a few. So he talks about reality therapy and choice theory works in education, it works in management, it works with marriage. So marriage, okay? The gay people have a lot to show us because, 2 men and 2 women, they are more equal to each other already, like in terms of desires and interests and stuff. So they will show us the model for what equality looks like. A lot of times it does seem like there's one sort of grumpy asshole and then there's one that's being manipulated all the time. But that's horrible. That's a hierarchical relationship, and that's a bad relationship. So you got education and management and marriage. So education, we need to be treating each other as equals, and in management we need to treat each other as equals. So how do you manage people and still be equal? Is that possible? Glasser thinks that it is. So, Glasser notably deviated from conventional psychiatrists by warning the general public about the potential detriments caused by the profession of psychiatry in its traditional form, because of the common goal to diagnose a patient with mental illness and prescribe medications to treat the particular. Okay, so basically we're over diagnosing with everybody. Now let's see, William Glasser's choice theory. So there's choice theory, and then there's a reality therapy. The way I understand choice theory is sort of you choose your life and you do what you want to do. Reality therapy is that in reality, there's no such thing as insanity. Insanity, people act crazy when they cannot communicate with those that they love. And I absolutely see that. I absolutely see that. When when my father is sitting there throwing all these charges on me, I don't understand how my family can just sit back and say that's acceptable. They've always said it is acceptable. They've never stood up. They don't abide by any type of principles or any type of morals. All they do is just, daddy's a mean asshole, and you better do as what daddy says, or else he'll fuck you over for the rest of your life. And so they go with power instead of, fear is stronger than love. So they go with what they fear instead of what they actually desire, what they actually want to happen. They want a nice, beautiful, happy family. Well, then, treat us like equals. If what's good for the goose, good for the gander. If it's wrong, if it's, I don't even really want to justify any of the things. But if you know, if they tried to say my self-defense is why I went, you know, they was going to throw me in prison for 5 years. That's what my family tried to do, throw me in prison for 5 years because I had defended myself. So, but okay, there was some violence that had happened, right? So there was he pushed into me, I pushed into him. He swings a golf club at my head. I pick a golf club. We're ready to, you know, knock each other out, right, for good. And then eventually he walks back. So when I showed power for myself, that's when he comes to his senses. He don't want to die, but he's going to use every tactic that he can in order to oppress us. And so he used violence, and nobody says a word. But if I use violence to defend myself, then I'm the bad person. If I speak up about what had happened, I'm the bad person. So it's like they have no. I mean, it's just it blows my mind and it makes me sick to my stomach because they don't have any morals at all. All they want to do is kiss daddy's ass, and then they want to try to make me get in line. That's all they care about. That's what they've seen their entire life. So anytime I try to say, hey, you know, hey, I believe that freedom and justice are good things. Oh, that's stupid. I can't talk to you. You won't allow me to even breathe or have any. And you know what? These are the same type of people. The end result of the oppressive American authoritarian education is corporal punishment. In West Point Elementary, they're still paddling kids here. So they want to hit the kids. They basically, all these classroom management tactics are like every other way to hurt somebody in order to, you know, basically to control and dominate without actually hitting them. So everything up to the point of actually hitting them. So what do? You got to threaten them, divide and conquer. You got to use this tactic, that tactic. And if you had a classroom which you didn't kind of, you know, maintain the order or have some sort of structure to it, it would be uncomfortable. It would absolutely suck, and things probably would happen, and you wouldn't be able to stop it. So choice theory is the work of William Glasser, author of the book so named. Culmination of 50 years of theory and practice in psychology and counseling. Choice theory posits that behavior is central to our existence and driven by 5 genetically driven needs, similar to those of Abraham Maslow, right? So Maslow's hierarchy. This goes right back to Maslow's hierarchy. We all need these 5 qualities in our life. And so survival, belonging, love, power, significance, competence, freedom, autonomy, and fun and learning. Those are the things we all need, right? We need to feel significant and competent, but also there's power. We also need to feel like we belong and that we're connected to people and that we're loved and that we're loving people. And freedom and autonomy, we need to be able to make our own choices. We need to have fun, and we need to, you know, be learners, and education is a lifelong process, as well as survival, right? Food, clothing, shelter, safety, and all the rest. So choice theory posits the existence of a quality world. Represents a person's total outlook and understanding of the world around them as it relates to people, possessions, beliefs, start from birth and continue throughout their lives. So 10 axioms of choice theory, and then I'll get to the reality-based theory. The only person whose behavior we can control is our own. We can only do, what we say we can do. All we give another person is information. So we can say this is this and that is that, but we're only giving information. So all long-lasting psychological problems are relationship problems. So that's why relationships is like one of the required classes. What happened in the past has everything to do with what we are today, and we can only satisfy our basic needs right now and plan to continue to satisfy them in the future. So, you know, we are who we are because what happened in the past, but we only right now we can go forward. We can only satisfy our needs by satisfying the pictures in our quality world. All we do is behave. So behavior is the most important thing about our entire being. What we do, you know, recording videos, that's behavior, right? All behavior is speaking as a sort of behavior. Its total behavior is made up of 4 components: acting, thinking, feeling, and physiology. All total behavior is chosen, but we only have direct control of the acting, thinking components. We can only control our feeling and physiologically indirectly through how we choose to act and think. All total behavior is designated by verbs and named by the part that is most recognizable. So that's a choice theory, right? That's sort of saying that we're complicated creatures. But reality therapy is like we can't communicate. So I cannot communicate to my family that I don't want to be beat up and that I don't want to be disrespected. I don't want to be mocked and humiliated. I want people to actually listen and to give a damn about my life and about my existence. But they don't understand that. They're oppressive assholes. So it's like you look at the grip servers. My mother's side of the family, there's Camillus, who was sort of a drunken, oppressive dickhead, and then the mother who just basically took all the abuse and shit. And she wasn't a pushover. She would sometimes, like, you know, yell at the children too. But essentially the dad was the oppressor and the mom was the oppressed. And so now that you have the grip servers who have grown up, they've either adopted mom or dad's perspectives, either their mom or their dad. And I think most of them are dad. Most of them are, you know, if you had a choice of being the victim of being beat up all the time and having no rights and no say-so whatsoever, or being the asshole, Even Kanye West said he'd rather be a dick than a swallower, right? So he'd rather be the jerk than the person who has to take the person's bullshit. But I feel like that false dichotomy, oppress or the oppressor's boss or slave, is absolute bullshit. Hierarchy and will to power is what destroys all relationships. And so the insanity only happens when you cannot speak to the people that you love and there's no communication. So that's fine. Like, I mean, it's not fine. It's absolutely horrible. Spike Wright and all these people that's in positions of power, these judges, they think they're doing right because they're siding with Daddy, but Daddy has always been wrong since the very beginning. He uses violence to, get his way. Is it that surprising that a person who attacked me 5,000 times in my childhood would continue to attack me in adulthood? No, and he will never stop until eventually I say you need to stop, and people need to allow me to say, hey, you need to stop. But it's like even the rite of passage, right? Because lots of conflicts happen between sons and controlling, dominating men, and usually it's around their teenage years, and that's when they say, no, enough is enough, and they'll stand up for themselves, and then, a good father would say, shake their hand, okay, you're a man now, I'm sorry, I've been treating you like an asshole, and, but, you did what you needed to do, and I respect you for it, and let's go have a beer. But no, it's not even like that. It's the exact opposite. I mean, basically, he's just a pussified little fucking humiliated bitch, and so he has to, like, piled on top and top and top and top and over again just to say, hey, look at this world. He's an asshole. He's a little bitch. I can fucking treat him like an asshole, and then everybody goes along with it as if that's acceptable. That's not acceptable. I should have a right to never see a person who's beat the shit out of me for the rest of my life, or who beat the shit out of me for most of my life, for the rest of my life. I should never have to see that asshole again. I should be protected. And at no point has American society ever protected me. Not as a child, not as an adult, never. They've never protected me. I get robbed by black people, nobody protects me. I get robbed by white women, no one protects me. I get beat up by people, nobody protects me. And so it has to do with the lack of power, lack of sort of love for myself, and if I don't respect myself and I'm around people that disrespect me all the time, they think, oh, well, we're allowed to disrespect this asshole, fuck this asshole. So reality therapy, this is also Desiree McGowan. There's insanity or whatever. I was kind of getting, upset about. She wouldn't listen to me, and basically she liked the oppressive environment. She'd sit in the class, and she would, you have to submit. That's all she did was submit. She's a strong black woman, but she sat in these classes and let these white teachers just manipulate and control them. Professor Muniz even put, like, his hand on her shoulder, so they're touching her, right? They're telling her to do this and to do that, and she's just going along with how things are. When Karen Dunnigan started yelling at her, right, she hated it so much. I'm gonna kick your ass. I'm gonna kick your ass, and she's allowed to do it. Why is she allowed to do it? I asked Karen Dunnigan, ask any of the women that was in that classroom. Later on, 2 days later, because I had been disrespected so much, you had another older woman that was like, you don't have authority. Because I was like, oh, you're going to question my authority, but you haven't questioned authority the whole time. You don't have authority. I have authority as a person, as a human, as a citizen, as a student. I have lots of authority in terms of my human rights. And the fact I have to remind you that I'm a human being just goes to show me that how low you think I am. Y'all dehumanize me to be put in that position, to be lectured at, so we're absolute nobodies. She said she's going to kick my ass. And then my friend, Arthur E. Lee, he also did the exact same thing. When I got robbed the day after, I'm sitting there trying to talk to him about this. He said, God, you're talking retarded. And then he kept calling me names and just being real shitty. And it's kind of like, my God, why are you being such a dick? Were you a part of it? Did you rob me? Do you not give a damn? And then when I said I got kicked out, then he says, well, just start selling drugs. He basically, 4.5 years, he watched my life, watched me to strive for the things that I wanted to do, but I guess he was so jealous, or he just wanted to rob me and fuck me over, that when eventually everything had come crumbling down, he was like, fuck you then. Your life is gone. Your dreams that you've been chasing for 4 years, it's all gone. Fuck you. Get on, just fucking sell drugs, and maybe you'll get thrown in prison for the rest of your fucking life. And then he'll talk about his mother getting raped. So his mother being raped is something that will stay with him forever, right? That's a horrible thing that had happened, and you shouldn't just get over it the day after. But Curtis Stewart robbing me, and then these white women robbing me, this is the most... Basically, I feel like they're the exact same people. They're the oppressors who saw me about to succeed, and they hated it. They hated the idea that I was going to actually make something of myself, and that's why I like online learning. People don't actually get to see me and see where I'm about to do and where I'm at in life, and so they can't stop me from succeeding. But that's all they wanted to do. This Curtis Stewart wanted to rob me because, how dare you? You're a white man. White people have been screwing us, so I'm going to fuck you over. So it was racism, and it was also that I'm about to succeed and do well in life. And just to give up on me so quickly, oh, well, who gives a damn? So, a couple more minutes. Reality-based therapy is an approach to psychotherapy and counseling is developed by William Glasser in the 1960s. Reality therapy differs from conventional psychiatry and psychoanalysis and medical model schools of psychotherapy, and it focuses on what Glasser calls psychiatry's 3 R's: realism, responsibility, and right and wrong, rather than the symptoms of mental disorders. So reality therapy maintains that individuals are suffering from a socially universal human condition rather than a mental illness. So we're all humans. That's what the difference between William Glasser and all these other psychos out here. Instead of saying, labeling somebody and you're this way, and then try to, like, um, um, sort of work around a person's ADHD. Is it ADHD if I don't like the person's oppression? No, it's not ADHD. I don't like you being the oppressor. I can't sit still because you just want to manipulate and control me, and I can feel that, that on me, and I don't like it. It feels like a creepy child molester. It feels like a pedophile, rapist type of person that just wants to put their hands all over me and do whatever they want to do. It's like a person that just stands like this, like, well, what are you doing? You want to put your hands on me? You want to fight me? You want to molest me? You want to do something bad to me? Don't you, oppressor? So yeah, that's where the crimes come from, or and it's, they'll trust people with power, but they won't trust people with freedom. People that steal people's freedom is already taken away their soul and their humanity. If they've taken everything away from them, they are capable of doing anything to them. And I said that the oppressor is one step away from being a molester, and that absolutely is true. Do this, do that, and I'll let me, Terry Schoon, right? Terry Schoon was sitting there saying, now click on this, click on that, let me touch your leg, let me touch your leg. Oh, I'm being nice and gentle. Here, look, I'm touching your leg. How's that feel? You're my slave dog, and you're doing all that I tell you to do, and I'm so turned on by this power that I have over you, and now I'm touching you. But Richard Hudson doesn't understand that. Sexual harassment requires power over somebody. He's like, did you object? And yet, when I try to get a conversation, they want 100% compliance, but when I try to get a conversation from Julie Chancellor, Richard Hudson doubles down and was like, how dare you? And they kicked me out because I wanted a conversation. Yet I'm supposed to cry to the hills, right, when somebody is sitting there lightly touching my leg over and over again. Was it a friendly little, hey, I like what you're doing? Or was it a, ooh, I like touching your skin and I want to, do more to you? So, reality therapy maintains the individual suffering from a socially universal human condition rather than a mental illness. It is in the unsuccessful attainment of basic needs that a person's behavior moves away from the norm. Since fulfilling essential needs is part of a person's present life, reality therapy does not concern itself with the client's past. Neither does this type of therapy deal with unconscious mental processes. In these ways, reality therapy is very different from other types of psychotherapy. The reality therapy approach to counseling and problem solving focuses on the here and now actions of the client, the ability to create and choose a better life. Typically, clients seek to discover what they really want and how they are currently choosing to behave in order to achieve these goals. According to Glasser, the social component of these psychological disorders has been highly overlooked in the rush to label the population as sick or mentally ill. Reality therapy attempts to separate the client from the behavior. Just because someone has experienced distress resulting from a social problem does not make them sick, it just makes them out of sync with his psychological needs. I had Kate Gripsover. They put Kate Gripsover, an ancestor of mine, in Lakeland Asylum, which is known for electroshock therapy and abusing all their patients, and mental hospitals, orphanages, reform schools. These are all basically just like little prisons. Charles Manson got molested in a reform school. You had that school, reform school in Florida. They found like 150 children's bodies, male bodies, boys' bodies, right? So people, I mean, we care about the girls, save our girls in Nigeria, but what about all the child soldiers that was being murdered over there? We don't care about our boys at all, okay? There is save the women and children first, right? That is sort of a, that's the call of the Titanic, right? There's that, but does that mean men are expendable? Men can be just wiped out and nobody gives a crap? And that's exactly right. That's totally true. Men are expendable. And since it's a woman's world, because it obviously is a woman's world, as it should be, right? They give birth, and so everything circles around the home and them procreating and carrying the human species on. But really, there's lots of people that need to be adopted, and so you don't need, exactly. You need women to keep procreating, but it's not like we need to have like 20 babies or 30 babies for every woman to have all those kids. But fundamentally, right, thinking in terms of just as animals to continue the species, the whole thing is centered around the woman just because they're the ones that give birth. Of course it is. And since it's a woman's world, women need to expand their privilege, right? They're sitting there looking at me and Malcolm X Debate Club and saying, you're a privileged white man. Of course you're a racist, bigoted, piece of crap. And no, that wasn't true at all. I very much sided with black folks and women, but they were racist, sexist themselves, and so they were putting their racist sexism on me, and they're allowed to do that when they're the ones that are privileged. They're the ones that can do that. They're allowed to be racist and sexist, and they don't get any type of trouble whatsoever. And I think I did have a lawsuit, but again, it would just be my word versus them, and they could just lie about it, and that's they would believe their lies over my truth any day of the week, because you can hurt a man, but you can't hurt a woman, and it's socially unacceptable to hurt a woman, but you can hurt a man all day long. So a police officer, white male police officers, are more likely to believe white women over the lies of white women over the truth of a white man, and maybe unless they knew each other, maybe if that's because I've heard like in eastern Kentucky, a lot of the local establishment would actually ignore all the problems of the women that was going on, because they had knew the guy from work or whatever, and so it was sort of institutionalized. But those things happen, but I think it's in the minority as of this. It's Kentucky, so actually it might be a lot bigger than what I think it is. Racism, Donald Sterling. If you say these racist comments, you get fired from your position, and so it feels like maybe 10 to 20% or so of white people are racist. But there might actually be a lot bigger than that, and yeah. So I don't know where I'm going with all that. So yeah, choice theory, William Glasser, Paulo Freire. We need to treat each other as equals, and we need to actually sit down and listen to one another and genuinely care about each other. So there should be a relationship class, and I guess this would be the first video for the relationship class. So.